NATO just got a boost. Sweden officially joined the alliance Thursday. The addition comes 2 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine started and forced countries like Sweden to reassess their own defense capabilities. It also comes at a time when defense spending among NATO allies is front and center. Canada is facing increased scrutiny and questions over when it will meet the alliance's target for defense spending, which is 2% of GDP. The feds have yet to commit to a timeline.
We have much to contribute to keep the world safe and therefore keep Canada safe as well. These are things that we have stepped up on, unlike the previous Conservative government that actually dropped military funding down below 1%. We have steadily increased military funding with a plan to increase spending by 70%.
Latvia's defense minister was just in Ottawa, and according to recent figures, that country spent 2.27% of GDP on defense spending, ranking 9th among NATO allies. I spoke with Minister Andris Spruds after his meeting with this country's defense minister, Bill Blair. Have a listen to our conversation. Hi, Minister. Pleasure to welcome you to our studio.
Hello, pleasure to being here.
Thank you for being here. I wanted to start off actually with the NATO mission in Latvia. There are about 1,000 Canadians there. That mission is led by Canada. Why, in your view, is it an important mission?
It is a very important mission. It is a very important mission for NATO. It shows symbolic and practical solidarity within NATO alliance. It's one for all for one. It is also important for strengthening the eastern flank, the frontline countries, but of course by this it also strengthens the whole NATO, and it is very important. It's highly appreciated also in Latvia and also in Latvian society. Latvian society sees the Canadian leadership, sees Canadian flag as well in Latvia, and of course it has been already a relationship for some time, and absolutely it has been developing now, and we believe that of course it will be developing for coming years, because of course we all are in the same boat, and here the common united approach and defense is extremely important. I think it's appreciated by all sides involved.
I want to ask you about the potential for that growth, because the government here has talked about how the intention, NATO's intention, is to essentially increase the size of the mission so that it takes on brigade status. That would involve essentially a doubling of the number of Canadian troops in Latvia. And we have a lot of issues in this country with recruitment in particular. The defense minister, Bill Blair, has conceded, to me just a few weeks ago, even with new equipment announcements, there are still remaining equipment gaps. Do you think it's realistic by 2026 that mission does take on brigade status?
There is exactly the decision how we move forward. Already in Madrid NATO summit, we signed a roadmap, how are the next steps being made. So far, so good, and it's from both sides. Of course, there are some homework which should be done, and exactly by 2026, the size of the battle group and the Canadian presence will increase by almost two times. And of course, yes, it requires some additional, you can say, effort, but effort on Latvian side and also on Canadian side, but all our discussions, all our previous experience shows that we can go forward and practically implement those decisions which are being taken, those commitments also being taken within a roadmap, which is very clearly setting the timeline how we move forward.
And have you received personal assurances from your counterpart here in Canada, Bill Blair, that will happen by 2026?
Yes, with regard to the roadmap, I mean, there are mutual assurances that we are doing our best, we are doing what's required to achieve the goal, because absolutely it is a commitment, it is a credibility, it is an important step, and once more it underlines our friendship and partnership and common vision.
I also wanted, Minister, to ask you more widely about NATO, and in particular some of the targets that have been established when it comes to defense spending. The one primary target being that it be a floor, a minimum of 2% of GDP on defense spending. Latvia exceeds that target right now. Is the number important to you?
A number is important, yes, absolutely. From Latvian perspective is important, but I think it's not just from Latvian perspective it's important. It's important in general from the allies perspective, from alliance perspective. If you look also the data, then this year we started with around 11 countries out of 32 countries already now, but 11 countries which fulfill the commitment of 2%. By the end of the year, it's expected that there will be 18 countries achieving the goal of 2% and perhaps even more. And it is important for the NATO alliance as such, because of course in the times when we face an aggressor country and basically, when of course we need to strengthen our resilience, our defense, our deterrence capabilities, it is important for alliance as a whole, but of course it is also important as a commitment.
Right now, Canada is the only country among those 31 allies that has yet to lay out a pathway to get there, to say we will reach it by this date and here's how we're going to get there. To be fair to this country, there's a big increase in defense spending planned over the years. The government often flags other NATO contributions, but still that doesn't take away from the fact that we said we'd meet 2%, but we have not said by when. Does it matter if a country says by when?
Yes, Canada, first of all, once more, I think it has done a lot in terms of contributing to NATO alliance and security, especially of Eastern flank and in Latvia, which is highly appreciated. We believe that also Canada is a big and important country within NATO alliance, and that's why, of course, it is important also in terms of the military strength and sort of even adding and expanding this military strength and resilience and capabilities. And of course, I mean, for Latvia, it also has taken some time to move actually at the beginning 2% and then now to 3%. So of course, for each country, there is some timeline. The most important in this regard, there is a commitment and ambition that it should be achieved. And of course, in this case, it's also for the Canadian government and Canadian society to decide what the timeline which would be the most optimal one.
But you were assured, you're saying even in your time here in Ottawa, that the goal was to meet that target at some point?
Yes. To put it shortly, yes, I was assured about the ambition to achieve the goal at some point, yes.
Before I let you go, Minister, I wanted to ask you also about the trajectory of Russia's war on Ukraine and where you see things headed. There were some very interesting comments recently from French President Emmanuel Macron that drew quite a reaction from other European countries about the possibility or propensity of actually troops, Western troops, being in Ukraine. What is your assessment of the, I guess, collective willingness to, at the very least, continue aiding Ukraine among your European allies? Like, is there tangible war fatigue from where you sit, and how do you counter that?
Well, Russia is a aggressive imperialistic dictatorship. It kills its opposition politicians or people within Russia, and brutally and tragically also outside Russia. I mean, during the war, of course, during the aggression in Ukraine. So that's why I think there is understanding that Russia is a threat. It has been ingrained also in the NATO strategic concept 2 years ago. So it has been a unified approach. And of course, also there is understanding that what happens in Ukraine, it is first of all Ukrainian fight for their freedom, but it's also has wider implications in terms of the NATO and Euro-Atlantic credibility, in terms of the rules-based international order, in terms of our security as well. So that's why there is this understanding, and I receive assurances of this in every meeting I meet with my Euro-Atlantic counterparts, be it in NATO meetings, be it EU meetings, European Union meetings, be it in Ramstein format under the US leadership, also be it in the context of Macron's initiative. So there is understanding that we should look for all agendas, all venues, all opportunities possible, how we can address Ukrainian needs.
I'll leave it on that note. Minister, I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
I appreciate for having me here. Thank you so much.